At the age of 12, when Red first dropped out of school to work, he encountered an event that would completely change his life. Coming from a poor family, he left school early and relied on manual labor to make a living. No matter where he went, he was looked down upon. No one could have imagined that he would become a world-renowned billionaire. He had just lifted a block of ice when a sudden honk from behind startled him, causing the ice to scatter all over the ground. The wealthy kid behind him showed no remorse and instead mocked him with insulting words. This made Red, who was just stepping into society, appear quite awkward. Watching the other boys swagger away, he felt a mix of emotions. At that moment, he noticed a newspaper on the ground that chronicled the legendary story of steel magnate Andrew Carnegie. The two had strikingly similar childhoods, both dropping out of school to work at the age of 12 and enduring disdain from wealthy kids. However, Carnegie ultimately became the famous steel tycoon, worth hundreds of millions of dollars. In an era when $10 could support an entire family, that was undoubtedly a fortune. At that moment, the boy named Red silently vowed to become a billionaire. When he returned home, Reed eagerly told his father, "I want to be a billionaire." His father replied, "Remember, son, you will never be rich. You can only be a lower-class person. That's how my father taught me, and so I can only teach you the same." Listening to his father's unreasonable talk, Reed fell silent. Looking at his ailing mother, he refused to live a life like his father's, unable even to buy medicine for her. He decided to venture out, knowing that only by making big money could he save his mother. Little did he know, this would lead to a permanent separation. With no money to buy a train ticket, he tried to sneak onto a train with other stowaways but was caught by the staff. In a critical moment, a kind black man stepped in to help him escape. Exhausted, Reed found a corner to curl up and fell into a deep sleep. When he woke up, he saw the man gesturing towards the air, expressing his gratitude. Though Reed didn't understand, the man told him that gratitude keeps the heart warm. When the train reached its destination, the man jumped off and was never seen again. Reed had no choice but to follow some passers-by to a small town where he coincidentally encountered a farmer hiring workers. During a time of industrial scarcity, many applicants quickly gathered. Reed pushed forward, desperately trying to sell himself to the farmer. The farmer was looking for strong, sturdy workers, so Reed turned and attempted to lift a nearby hefty man to prove his strength. Though he ultimately failed, that comical act made the farmer laugh and he decided to hire Reed anyway. Young Reed had no experience with farm piling and a gentle push could topple the stakes. However, his spirit of perseverance was something others lacked. While the others took breaks, he continued to reinforce his wooden stakes. Noticing his dedication, a boy named Gus approached him and offered him a spoonful of water. Through their conversation, Reed learned that Gus was originally the son of a wealthy farmer, but due to the economic depression, his family had fallen on hard times and now relied on working for others. Gus's dream was to restore his family's business and become the largest farmer in Texas. These two young souls, both facing adversity, encouraged each other and became important friends. However, the path to their dreams was filled with uncertainty and confusion. That evening, watching the workers gather to play cards, Reed fell into deep thought. He suddenly realized that merely working would never make him a billionaire. He would end up like those people, wasting his days aimlessly. So, Reed approached the farmer and bluntly asked, "How can I become rich like you?" The farmer replied that there were many conditions for success, but only by becoming a leader in the community could one truly succeed. This statement awakened Reed. After pondering a bit, he asked the farmer if finishing his work early could save costs. The farmer said, "Yes." Reed then proposed, "I can finish the work tomorrow. You can give me a portion of the money saved. How about that?" The farmer chuckled and replied, "I admire your ambition, but you won't be able to do it." The next morning, the workers were awakened by the bell, only to find Reed had already begun working at 3 a.m. He devised an assembly line approach to the task, significantly boosting efficiency, and successfully completed his work ahead of schedule, earning extra rewards. This was his first bucket of gold, and he sent $20 back home to buy medicine for his mother. Just as he was about to leave, he was drawn to a man with a gold-embroidered belt. Reed asked him, "How can I become rich like you?" The man simply replied, "The Texas plains are filled with gold. The key is whether you can see deep enough." Clever Reed immediately thought of oil. As he stepped out of the store, Reed was captivated by a pretty girl. Her name was Hannah, a very popular school beauty. She invited him to the school dance. Nervously, Reed agreed and spent all his savings on a nice outfit. Gathering his courage to strike up a conversation, he was interrupted by Gus, who got to her first. It was clear that Hannah had more interest in Reed, but he blurted out, "I want to marry you." That day, he was driving Hannah home when he saw a wealthy young man picking her up. Not willing to back down, Reed stepped forward and declared that this country bumpkin would one day become a billionaire. Hannah had feelings for Reed too, but her father wouldn't approve of her dating someone without a degree. So, Hannah took him to the principal's office to try for a spot as an auditor. However, Reed believed that school was a waste of time and was convinced he could learn everything he needed through self-study, citing many successful people who had never attended college. Seeing this boastful young man, the principal initially initially wanted to lecture him, but Reed quickly asked Hannah to give him a 5-digit multiplication problem. What's 56679 times 61? In just 1 second, he calculated the 7-digit answer, 3,457,419, in his head. After Hannah verified it, she found it matched the correct answer perfectly. Not only that, but he also deduced from the principal's eczema that he was allergic to the plant behind him, which was a Ficus benjamina, known for secreting allergens from its leaves. The principal said, "Young man, ambition is a good thing, but a solid education is important for your future." Reed calculated the principal's salary and replied, "You've had a good education, with an annual income of about $1,700, but I'm not satisfied with that." This angered Hannah. She felt that Reed's competitiveness was just a manifestation of his inner insecurity. With that, she turned and walked away without looking back. The next day, Reed showed up in class, and Hannah was thrilled he had taken her advice. Back in school, the young couple enjoyed some wonderful times together. But suddenly, news broke that Japan had attacked Pearl Harbor, and the US was forced to declare war on Japan. Though Reed wanted to make money, he was also a passionate young man, so he lied about his age to enlist. When Hannah found out, they had a big fight, but it ended with her saying, "I love you," as a farewell. On the battlefield, a commander ordered a rookie to deliver a message to the front lines, but the rookie hesitated. Seeing this, Reed took the envelope without a second thought and set off, seizing any opportunity that came his way. However, the brutality of war exceeded his expectations, and during the delivery, he was struck by a shell. Fortunately, he encountered his old friend Gus, who risked his life to drag him back and saved his life. They became comrades in arms. Time flew by, and Reed grew into a man. After leaving the military, he used all his savings to buy a drilling rig, but he couldn't strike oil, and his family was struggling to make ends meet with 4 children to raise. Reed was a genius, but he was incredibly unlucky. One day, something his son said sparked an idea: hire professionals to do professional work. So, he hired an expert, and after surveying the area, they indeed discovered a massive oil field with a reserve of 50 million barrels. He could sell $1,000 worth in a single day. Although becoming a billionaire still felt far off, being a millionaire was well within reach. However, the former farm owner tried to take advantage of the situation and sued him, claiming their agreement only covered the land and did not include the rights to extract the oil beneath it. Such shameless behavior infuriated Reed. He remembered that professionals should handle professional matters. He hired the best black lawyer, Dick, for a hefty fee. In that particular era, almost everyone assumed Reed would lose. The opposing lawyer constantly insulted Dick, but he paid little attention to the outside noise. Instead, he turned to Reed and asked how quickly he wanted the case resolved. Reed replied, "As fast as possible." With just a few words, the professional Dick had the farmer's lawyer at a loss for words. Reed was astonished by his expertise and immediately offered to hire Dick as the legal advisor for his oil company at a high salary. With Dick's legal support, Reed's oil business flourished over the next 10 years. He purchased farm after farm, building his own oil empire, and his net worth skyrocketed to well over $10 million. As Reed's business grew larger, he focused all his attention on work, which led his children to become spoiled and irresponsible, only asking for money and doing nothing productive. But Reed didn't care. All he wanted was to make more money and become a world-renowned billionaire. With more oil fields being discovered, the market became saturated, causing crude oil prices to plummet. Reed always remembered what the farmer had told him, to always be a leader of the times. Determined to find a new path, Reed decided to refine oil himself and create his own supply chain. He quickly set his sights on a struggling refinery on the brink of bankruptcy. He approached the owner with Dick, but the owner's arrogance turned into disdain during their negotiation, leading him to refuse to sign a contract and instead send Reed home to wait for news. Reluctantly, he and Dick returned to the hotel. However, that waiting turned into 2 weeks with no response. The next day was Christmas. Despite the obstacles, Dick insisted on going home to be with his family. The refinery was too important to Reed, so he stayed behind alone, waiting for news. Finally, the next day, he received the contract. It turned out the refinery's owner had already been prepared to transfer it to him, simply wanting to test Reed's sincerity. After this acquisition, Reed saw headlines in major newspapers declaring him a billionaire. He had finally realized his childhood dream of becoming a multimillionaire. But as he looked around, he found no one to share in his joy. Meanwhile, he received a call from his wife with devastating news. Dick had been in a car accident on his way home, and both his kidneys were severely damaged, leaving him reliant on dialysis to survive. The only hope now was for someone to donate a kidney to save him. Seeing his friend lying weakly in the hospital, Reed decided to donate one of his kidneys to save his old buddy's life. The words of that kind black man from his childhood on the train echoed in his mind, reminding him to be grateful for life's gifts and the lessons time had taught him. After this experience, Reed finally understood the meaning of life. Once discharged, he held a family meeting and announced that he would use all his wealth to establish a charitable foundation to help those in in need. He then gave each child $10,000, encouraging them to use it to help others. This was a test, but his children seemed to have already calculated how to spend the money. Only his youngest son returned the money, expressing a desire to invest it in the foundation. Ultimately, the youngest son became the heir of the foundation. The story is based on John D. Rockefeller, one of the founders of ExxonMobil, the world's largest oil company and America's first billionaire, often referred to as the King of Oil. Please subscribe to my channel. In the next episode, we'll share another movie about how an ordinary person gets rich.